The checkout line moves slowly. You're standing behind a woman counting coupons, carefully, one by one, calculating whether she can afford the third item in her basket. You look down at your own basket. Pasta, tomato sauce, a loaf of bread, $18.40 total. Your card is matte black, nothing special, the kind anyone could have. You tap it, done, you walk out. You load the grocery bags into the back of a 2019 Honda Pilot with 87,000 miles on it and a dent in the rear bumper. You've been meaning to fix since last spring. You haven't fixed it. Here's why. That dent is the most valuable thing on the car. Your phone buzzes as you close the trunk. A notification from your portfolio manager. You glance at it. One line. You put the phone in your pocket. You start the engine. You drive home. Nobody in that parking lot has any idea they just stood next to someone worth $500 million. And that's not an accident. That's the whole strategy. Part 1. How it started. The $190 proof. It didn't start with a business plan. It didn't start with a mentor or a conference or a moment of inspiration so cinematic it belongs in a movie. It started with a broken vending machine. You were 26. You were working in logistics, making $44,000 a year, showing up every day in a company car, filing reports nobody read. One afternoon, a machine in the break room ate someone's last dollar bill. The building manager shrugged. I don't own it. Some company does. That sentence, that specific sentence wouldn't leave you alone. You went home that night, cold pasta on the stove, calculator open on your phone. You did the math on vending machines for 3 hours. Then you made 6 phone calls, found one company willing to talk. 3 weeks later, you placed your first machine, a used one, beat up on one side, lobby of a dental office, revenue share deal, handshake agreement, first month net profit, after every single cost, $190. $190. Your coworker made more than that, doing half a shift of overtime. But here's what you understood that your coworker didn't. You weren't looking at the $190. You were looking at what the $190 proved. The architecture worked. The machine sat there solving a small problem for strangers and paid you every single time. Without you being there. That's the entire idea. You placed a second machine, then a third. You told nobody, not your parents, not your college roommate, not anyone. It felt too small to mention. And by the time it stopped being small, the silence had already become the whole structure. Part 2. The boring business theory. The psychological shift. This is what others miss. Here's something nobody will tell you about building real wealth. The most dangerous thing you can do is build something exciting. Exciting businesses need attention. They need you. They need investors, pitches, growth targets, quarterly reviews. And the moment you stop feeding them, they slow down. Boring businesses are different. A coin laundromat in a strip mall in Ohio doesn't care if you're watching. People always need to wash their clothes. Not when times are good, not when the economy is growing, always. In a recession, people wash their clothes. When interest rates spike, people wash their clothes. When some new app disrupts the way humans communicate, people still, every single week, wash their clothes. You bought your first laundromat at 29 from a retired postal worker named Dale, who ran it from a flip phone and a spiral notebook. The books were a mess, but underneath the mess, the cash flow was real. Year 1, it netted $38,000. You didn't celebrate. You used it as a down payment on the next one, then parking lots, bought through county tax auctions nobody else bothered to show up to, then a commercial cleaning company from a 68-year-old man named Frank who sat across from you at a diner and said the only thing sellers always eventually say, I just need to know my people will be taken care of. You said, I will make sure of it. He believed you. The deal closed in 14 days, then self-storage, then ATMs, then highway billboard ground leases assembled across 18 months through 3 separate brokers, none of them seeing the full picture until it was already yours. Your accountant at the time looked at your full portfolio and said, this is the most deliberately uninteresting portfolio I have ever seen. She meant it as a criticism. You took it as the highest compliment of your life. Part 3. The dent in the bumper, back to the Honda. The dent. Here's what the dent actually does for you. 2 years ago, you were at a networking event. A man in a very expensive watch asked what you drove. You said Honda Pilot. You watched his face make the calculation in real time. The car, the fleece jacket you were wearing from a sporting goods store clearance rack. The fact that you said you owned a few small businesses, laundromats mostly. He turned slightly towards someone else, mid-sentence, without realizing he was doing it. And in that moment, you became invisible. And invisible is the most powerful position in any room. Because the moment someone underestimates you, they stop watching you. And the moment they stop watching you, you can do whatever you want. This is what people fundamentally misunderstand about stealth wealth. They think it's about modesty. They think it's some philosophical stance. The humble, rich person at peace with their abundance. It's not. It's armor. The Honda isn't a statement. It's a tool. The average new car payment in America right now is $735 a month. Every single dollar that isn't going toward a car payment is going somewhere that compounds. That's the math. It's not complicated. It's just unpopular. Part 4, the loneliness. Nobody talks about Sotan. But here's the part nobody puts in the highlight reel. It gets lonely. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind you lie awake cataloging. Just a quiet, persistent fact. There are rooms inside your life that nobody gets to walk into. Not out of coldness, not by calculation, because you've learned at real cost what happens when those rooms get open to the wrong people. Your closest friend, a man named Marcus, is one of the genuinely good ones. He coaches youth basketball on Saturday mornings. He's patient with his kids in a way that makes you think he's a better person than you in the ways that actually matter. Last fall, over beers at a bar you both like, he told you he was thinking about putting his house on a HELOC to fund a smoothie franchise. He'd done the research. He was excited in a way you hadn't seen in a while. You did not say what you were thinking. You did not write a check. What you did, you asked him to send you the franchise disclosure document. You read it that night. You found 3 clauses that have historically destroyed franchisees: the territory exclusivity language, the supply chain markup structure, and a renewal fee schedule nobody models out. You sent him a 6-paragraph email written carefully to sound like someone who just reads a lot. He called 2 days later. The math doesn't work once you run it through. Yeah, I figured. How did you know to look at that stuff? I read a lot. You're weird, man. Yeah, he's safe. The friendship is intact. The house is not on a HELOC. But here's what Marcus will never know. He parks in a lot 2 blocks from his apartment every single morning. That lot has been quietly generating $3,100 a month for 4 years. It's yours. Part 5. The moment the number arrives. You crossed $500 million on a Tuesday. You were in the plumbing aisle of a hardware store. Specifically, you were trying to decide between a 3/8 inch and a 1/2 inch compression fitting for a faucet in one of your laundromats. Neither package had sufficiently clear labeling. That's when the email came in. Subject line, Q3 portfolio summary. No exclamation point. Your accountant is not an exclamation point person. You read the summary line twice, slowly, the way you read something when you're not sure you're reading it correctly. You put both fittings back on the shelf. You found a store employee and asked which one you needed. He told you. You thanked him. You went to the register. You paid $8.47. You drove home. You made the repair. You made dinner. You sat by the window and watched the neighborhood do what neighborhoods do on a Tuesday evening. Leaves moving, lights coming on in apartments, someone walking a very old dog on the sidewalk below. There was something in your chest, not pride, not relief. Something that felt more like the feeling when a very long, very complicated equation finally resolves. A quietness, a recognition. You thought about a 26-year-old sitting at a kitchen table at 11 p.m. doing math over a broken vending machine with $190 in monthly profit, and no particular reason to think any of it would go anywhere. He would not believe this, not for 1 second. Then you washed the dishes, and you went to bed. Part 6, what this actually looks like, now Wednesday. 7:22 a.m., you're at a diner 2 blocks from your apartment, not a trendy place. Not somewhere people take photos of their eggs, just a diner, vinyl booths, laminated menu, coffee in a white ceramic mug with a small chip on the handle. The waitress, a woman named Gloria, has been refilling your coffee without asking for 2 years. She thinks you work in insurance. You let her think that. Something about the way you check your watch twice before the food arrives reads like a man who processes risk for a living. She's not entirely wrong. Your phone shows 3 messages from property managers, a lease renewal from a commercial tenant, and a LinkedIn notification about a man named Raymond, 67 years old, who has run a regional pest control company for 22 years and updated his bio 4 days ago. Exploring next chapter? You add him to a list. The list has 9 names on it. Gloria comes back around. You want the check or another coffee? Another coffee. I've got a few minutes. She pours it. She doesn't know she parks in a lot 2 blocks from here every morning that generates $2,800 a month. She doesn't know the dry cleaner on the corner is in a building you've owned since 2019. She doesn't know the ATM by the door, the one she uses when she forgets to go to the bank, is yours. She knows you're the Wednesday guy. Eggs over medium, good tipper. Always seems to be thinking about something. She's not wrong about that either. You open your notebook. You write Raymond's name at the top of a blank page. Somewhere out there, 31 different boring businesses are running without you. You drink your coffee. That's enough. That's more than enough. Here's the thing about the silent millionaire that nobody says out loud. The silence isn't humility. The silence isn't strategy. At least not at first. The silence is what happens when you realize that the performance of wealth and the architecture of it are almost never found in the same person at the same time. The man in the expensive watch at the networking event, he's performing. The dented Honda in the parking lot, that's architecture. One is spending money to look like it compounds. The other is letting it compound while looking like nothing. The $500 million didn't create this mindset. The mindset created the $500 million, and the mindset started. The night a 26-year-old sat at a kitchen table doing math over $190, not because he was disciplined, not because he was smarter than everyone else in the room, because he looked at a broken machine that everyone else had walked past and saw something different. If there's one thing this channel is built on, it's that. The ability to see what everyone else is walking past. Subscribe. Your future self is already building something. You just have to let it run.